Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our show. And today we have the pleasure and the honor to welcome Jody Spencer, as we yesterday had just the running gag that if we would like to have something about acting and this, we have taken the best choice we could get because in marketing, you have to be extremely creative to adapt to the needs of your customer. With that, I would like to introduce Jody Spencer to the audience. And Jody, tell us a bit about yourself, please. How you have the pleasure to work for that fantastic company, what I had to learn, what you all can deliver and do.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today and this opportunity. And as you saw yesterday, I do love to talk about marketing. So it's going to be a great conversation. I am the Chief Marketing and Alliances Officer at Snowbound Software. And basically, Snowbound is a document viewing and conversion company. And to put that in context of your audience on the CRM side, what our company, our viewer would integrate into your CRM system or your line of business applications built on a CRM system. And if you have a document heavy workflow, we would allow you to view, annotate, redact, and modify documents through the web browser without ever needing the Creator app or downloading anything to your computer.
Very handy.
Absolutely, especially in this remote world first environment we're in.
Oh, yeah. I have found myself in the position many times where I would love to be able to modify a document that I just didn't have the ability to.
Well, get a Mac.
Talk to me afterward, Marshall.
You know
Get
it.
yourself a
Look,
Mac.
marketing. It's happening right now. Where's that sales? I get confused.
Well, we're kind of one in the same, right?
Yeah. You'll
It
get a
all goes
commission
back
off it.
to what does marketing mean, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
what does
which
it
we
mean?
were talking about yesterday.
Absolutely,
Some
right?
length.
Jody,
Yes.
a bit about your career. You are for a long time in the role of being the chief in the marketing department. And I know that this is has two sides. On one, you are very committed and passionate that people love. On the other side, it is do you get ever a bit bored just being marketing? Or is it even real fun?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know that I would ever say bored comes into that equation, right? Because marketing is constantly changing and constantly evolving. There are times I often get frustrated when I hear people talk about marketing, and obviously there's some bad feelings around what marketing is, and marketing is a
Isn't it all
cost
about
center.
advertisement?
Exactly. It's advertising and it's trade shows and it's a cost center. And the reality of it is that marketing in every department in your organization, everyone's a marketer, right?
Yeah.
You're talking from accounts payable and contracts, your case and support management side. Everyone is in marketing. So to answer your question, no, I don't get bored because every day is a completely new challenge. And again, as I mentioned in when we were talking, challenges equal opportunities, right?
Yeah. And I asked for forgiveness that I was acting as agent provocateur, which I can do very well. And not only in fluent French, but also that I take this very serious because the bottom of my heart, I'm coming in as a marketeer, and then the disguised salesperson is attacking.
Just wanted
As
to
I
say,
was
you're
in
our
those-
sales guy.
Sorry?
You are our sales guy.
Yeah, well, I'm very much in sales. I love sales, and such is one of the wordings I learned in one of my first jobs, which was every employee is a salesman. And you could change this, that with your vision and with your clear perspective, we are all in marketing and we show the benefits of our organization to our potential and our existing customers. In wherever department we are showing, or we are the face of the company. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the voice of the customer too, right? You
Yeah.
bring up a good point with sales and marketing. I mean, historically, we've all heard how sales and marketing are constantly, fighting with each other. And I think we're doing a much better job of breaking down that silo and beginning to work together. But in reality, we have to break down the silos across all those departments. I mean, I was just having a conversation talking about how marketing has changed over the past couple months, specifically with COVID. But even before that, marketing, as I said, spans every facet of your organization, right? So because we are the voice of the customer and the voice of the company, so you wear two hats, it's imperative that marketing has a seat almost at every table within the organization, because you need that critical information that is happening at each of the departments so that you can better take that information and turn around and make it an actionable item for that prospect or that customer along their journey, right? Accounts payable is having interactions with your customers and getting critical information. Your support department is doing the same. And because each of the departments are siloed to some extent, marketing needs to get that information to understand how to turn value and sometimes how to mitigate some situations with customers throughout their journey with your organization.
A friend of mine, the Professor Hermann Simon, simply said it in a very effective sentence on the parts of support. Every complaint is, after it's solved, an opportunity to sell, to upsell, to create loyalty, and to create a fantastic experience. Because
absolutely,
you sort out a problem, you are friendly, you are focused, you create a positive resolve of the trouble, and then they are open to trust you again.
Absolutely. I mean, you hear so much about the customer experience and the user experience and a customer life cycle, customer journey. When you really break it apart, I think about it in terms of a customer journey, right? Because the customer life cycle, if you think about that infinity loop that we all see, right? Acquire, attain, go around into keeping them and having loyalty. It's not a linear approach in their journey, right? It's not a straight line from point A to point C. There are going to be things that happen along that line that cause a customer to deviate on that journey. And when I think about customer experiences are the moments in their journey that you are building for them and that you are reacting to. So you need to be proactive and reactive in marketing. But it's imperative that you have the right data, the right information, and the right knowledge to be able to react in such a way that's going to cause them to come back into the desired journey that you want them to take. So it's very fluid, and you have to be very flexible.
There are so many different ways this conversation can go.
Choose one.
I know. I almost feel bad for stepping back a step, but something you were saying before has me wanting to follow up on it regarding marketing's place at the table, and your role throughout a company. One thing, a lot of people, it seems, or at least in my experience in larger businesses, don't seem to understand quite what marketing's role is. Certainly not to the extent that you have described it. I realize that you are right, but when I think what is marketing, it does not immediately cover everything that you have mentioned. So one, how do you get that information throughout the company? On the other hand, you have just carved yourself off a huge chunk of responsibility. How do you remain sane? How do you not, where do you get the heat to boil that much ocean when you've got to wonder, when you've got to worry about every other part of the company representing itself properly? It's crazy.
Oh, there's so many ways I can go with this answer.
This
let me
is
try
going
to
to
take
be
it
part
apart.
of like
Right?
a 3 or 4 part show, so you may as
Absolutely,
well get comfortable.
We could just have segments. Well, I'll come back for some of this. But the short answer is, how do you get that information across internally? I will say this. It is important to advocate internally for what marketing does, the importance of marketing, but you have to be really careful with that story, right? Because it's not all about what me, I, my department, we. It is about us as a company and how important they are in this concept of marketing your company's value externally and making them realize that they have been, this isn't anything new, right? They are doing marketing in their daily interactions with customers, but they just don't see it that way. So I think internally you have to take a step back and say, okay, how can I educate the different groups internally and make them realize their value and how they are marketers? And maybe marketing is not the right term. I often question, maybe we should start doing away with the term marketing because of the negative connotations. But I know that's not a reality. And I think the industry is doing a great job at trying to change the perception of what marketing does, move beyond the paid advertisements and the trade shows. And right, we're much more than that. So there's still a long way to go. But I think internally, you have to spend as much time as you do with your external audiences as well, because your internal audience is just as important. In terms of how do you stay sane, I don't. This is all an act. I am not this calm, cool, and collected normally. No. It's a balancing act, right? I mean, you're right. It's a huge ocean. There is so much out there to do, and the best piece of advice I could give, or how I handle it, because there are a lot of challenges, is I am the master at compartmentalizing through my day and getting through piece by piece and really looking at things and saying, where's the priority, right? Because everything cannot be a top tier A-list priority. And you really have to be diligent about going through that list and getting alignment on what priorities are and moving forward.
Yeah.
Can that prioritization be taught, or is it something that only really comes with experience?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you definitely, experience is obviously, you learn trial by fire, right? You're going to get burned, and mistakes and failures when you launch into certain projects and they don't pan out. Well, guess what? Failures are not all bad. You learn from mistakes. You grow from them. You learn what not to do. So to that end, that's where experience comes into play. Mm-hmm. In terms of can it be taught, I think there are some great resources out there on how to best, manage and get buy-in and talk about things internally. So I do think it's a combination of both.
Bit earlier, you said 2 interesting things.
Only 2?
I was going to say only 2.
Well,
dude, she's been carrying
two that I'd like to dig in now.
Sure.
Because we need to have some stuff for the remaining 3 shows, right? Let's start with the probably simpler one. You said you are creating experiences. I would say you are creating engagements, because experience is on my end, not on yours, right? So how do you work with that dilemma? If I have a bad day, whatever good intentions you have may turn sour.
Absolutely. Right. And that's a great point, because not all experiences are going to be good ones for the customer. And I think what you just mentioned about you're creating engagements versus experience, I could argue with you on that word, right? Because from my perspective,
show 5.
from my perspective, I am giving you an experience. How you're choosing to interact with me and do a takeaway, right? You go to Disney. There are experiences set up for you in the parks that you go through. They are experiences that you're supposed to feel. Well, if you're having a bad day, it's not a good experience. And it's the same way when you're interacting with companies. And I would say, even a negative experience with a company, there are some good takeaways that can come out of that, right? So we've all heard people say the customer's always right. There are times where the customer is not always right. And I know that that's not going to be a popular sentiment, but it might be where it's just not a right fit between the two organizations. But how you as a company build that experience for them to have the understanding come out that, this might not be a fit, or, okay, the remediation to the issue is not the ideal that I want as a customer, but I'm okay with this path that you're going to take me down. Now, you've just changed something from a customer who could walk away being livid with you to, okay, I'm not getting the outcome I sought out initially, but they listened to me. They were willing to work with me. They gave me an alternative. And you know what? I'm okay with the outcome of where we're going.
You have shown empathy. And this is the important thing, especially in the last 2 years, which have changed dramatically from our observation. Can you share that perspective?
Oh, the last 2 years from a marketing perspective has been rather interesting and challenging. Marketing has been evolving for quite some time, and it moves at a pretty rapid pace. I would say due to COVID, that even expedited much more quickly in terms of how we had to think on our feet, shift priorities, go to market with new tactics. There have been a lot of changes because the buyer has changed, the customer has changed, their expectations have changed, right? If we think back to whether you're on the B2C side or the B2B, you had human one-to-one interaction prior to COVID, right? Okay, so now we're all, in our houses, and the only way for us to interact is online. You now have to take those experiences that people had when they either walked in a store or they were having some sort of face-to-face interaction at a trade show, and you had to build that online for them to give them that same ability to research information, to make their own decisions, to be able to see what other people were talking about and getting reviews about things on their own. So the whole experience had to change rather quickly and move to a complete digital format. There were a lot of challenges for us on the backside to flip pretty quickly.
Isn't it rather that the engagement needs to change to get the same experience or to offer the same experience?
You're just sticking right in there on those words.
Yeah, I'm stubborn there.
Your method of engagement changes.
Yeah.
The method changes. The experience has to be tailored to that engagement. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
I'm with you.
What I want,
Okay.
what I want to drill down into, because that's why I poke so much.
He loved to.
But there's the other one. There's this micro experience. You're referring to what other people say consumable experiences, the individual interactions.
Yes.
As opposed to, how would you distinguish that from the overarching term customer experience, which is, as per friend Paul's definition, how a customer feels about company over time?
So the company, how a company feels, or how a customer feels about a company over time, I agree that comes out of their experiences with you, right? And their feelings that they take away.
Mhm.
The brand that you've built, right? And they walk away with that understanding of, okay, this is what this company stands for, and this is how they worked with me on either my initial sale or an issue that I had. And they're going to walk away and have a feeling, right? Because of that experience. But when you talk about going down to the micro level, think about when you enter, right? I have some brands that I love, and I haven't had a perfect experience with them every time, right? I may have had issues with a product that I've purchased from the brand that was top tier for me. When I contacted their customer support and I, had my moment where I wasn't necessarily the most even keel customer on the other end of the line, they handled it in a way that, again, going back to, it wasn't the outcome I was looking for, but it was one that was palatable for me. I walked away from that going, okay, it wasn't the reason that I called into that company was not a good experience, right? I'm obviously having a problem, but they handled it in such a way that it made me go, oh, you know what? It's okay. That company, I want to stick with that company because they were able to help me out. So,
It wasn't a success, but it was a good experience.
And over
it wasn't
time,
I would rephrase that. It wasn't the success that I sought initially,
Yeah.
but it was a success in the end, right? Because in the end, I am getting a resolution of some type that I'm happy with. And from the customer's perspective, they're keeping me as a customer. I'm a loyal customer. And even though it wasn't necessarily perhaps the experience I was hoping for, it was one that left me satisfied. And that, I think, as a marketer, as a customer support agent, as the salesperson on an account, that is what we're striving for, right? Is customer loyalty, customer advocacy.
Yeah.
We can't sit here and say we are going to have a 100% customer success rating across the board all times. I mean, if we can, please talk to me after this show. I want to understand how someone's doing that, right? The most that we can strive for is to make sure that we have that loyalty and advocacy, because they're not both the same thing. And that's where I think people get confused.
Yeah. By the way, customer loyalty and customer loyalty programs, do you have from your own organization, or do you have a favorite customer loyalty program which encourages you to engage?
We were having this conversation the other day, and it really gave me a pause to really think through some stuff after we talked as a group. We personally don't have any type of customer loyalty program for our buyers, just because of the product that we are selling. I see that more obviously on the B2C side. In terms of, I'm okay giving up information as long as there is something in it for me and it is not one-sided. So those programs that give me personal value, I'm okay with. But if you're just going to send me deals and offers and not paying attention to where my interests lie, I'm not okay spending the time to give you that intelligence, right? Because I, as a marketer, know what you're doing with that data. So I'm going to be I'm very stingy with what I give up.
This is absolutely what I wanted to hear, such as be aware of what you trade in. If you don't get a thing out, let it be. Take some other paths. But there are, for instance, experiences where you say, I love that loyalty program because I feel encouraged to engage more because it's so smart. It's not only me as a private person, as a buyer or participant, but from my professional perspective, I find it compelling or motivating. You found something like that?
Well, I'm going to take a step back here because you said something that brought up
Entschuldigung.
a point on, putting on the marketer's hat. We have more technologies at our disposal now. As a marketer, I have access to critical information, data that can help me give you, the customer, a better, to your point, Thomas, experience based on what you're looking for or what you might be interested in. However, challenges, right? Everyone has become more gated on what they're willing to give up to organizations. We've all heard about the third-party cookies, and people understand now that they're being tracked and monitored. That poses challenges, right? When you're saying to a company, you know what, I don't want to hear your messages about everything you have to offer. Tailor your communication to me personally and what my desires, my wants, things that I'm looking for. However, if you're not open to sharing some of that information and not enabling companies to track some of your journeys online through their website, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So as a marketer, there's ripe opportunity, but there's also the challenge, and you have to make it compelling enough for someone to say, you know what, I believe this organization is going to utilize my data correctly. I am going to give up some of my personal information.
I wonder.
That is, yes,
Sorry.
sure.
We have had a lot of conversations here about data privacy and security. So I'm just wondering, would a marketing executive such as yourself be the right person to talk to about teaching people how to safeguard themselves better? What can they give up? What can they share? And how should they be careful? Normally, it seems like that would not be the person to ask because they're the ones who want that data. But if anybody knows what is not to be given out ever because it's going to go to nefarious purposes, it would be, well, maybe not you, but someone like you.
That's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it from a resource perspective when you're talking about it externally to individuals, right? Because a lot of organizations have compliance officers who handle a lot of those regulations within an organization. But to your point, educating from a marketing standpoint, yes, does fall on our shoulders. And we definitely put out those statements on how we're using the information that we collect. But how many people actually take the time to read those notifications of what it's being used for? Because people have been burned too many times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Awesome. You get a gold star, right? Not many people do.
I don't. I just switched them off.
You decline, right? You decline, you don't accept. And, that's an interesting takeaway that I have to think a little bit more on, because you're right. There is opportunity for us to be more of an educator on that side, as opposed to just a landing page that talks about how we're using that data. That might be something with regard to customer calls, when you're engaging with your customers and doing the check-ins, when support is talking with them, making sure that they understand the information that's being collected and how it can be used. I mean, there's a potential opportunity there for that challenge.
Yeah,
and that landing page, by the way, is regularly written in legalese, which is a language that is close to Martian for me.
Yes, it is.
Trust are built on easy communication, not on jurisdictional rubbish.
Based upon this cookie stuff, third-party cookie predominantly, and what you said before is that you have an immense array of tools at your hand and disposal right now that helps you making sure or enables you to provide me with the right information. Whatever right is, I just put it in quotes. There's the famous statement that came up with, well, basically with social medias, the customer is in control. Is he or she? Or is the marketer in control? And how does that relate to the changing world that you as a marketer see?
I probably would have had a different answer for this 3 years ago. I would say that the customer is much more in control now. We were talking about the impact of COVID, and there's some great research out there that talks about the buying trends that have changed, right? And
I love it.
There's a statistic that jumps out at me, especially for this is specific to the B2B world, because that's kind of where I live. But on the B2B side, there was a study done by Trust Radius, and they had surveyed B2B tech buyers, and it was astonishing to see that now 87% of the buyers want the ability to be able to self-serve all or a part of their buying journey. Think about that statistic. People are going online. They're doing way more research on their own, right? We know the statistic that 70% of a person's mind is already made up by the time they come to their website and they raise their hand and make themselves known, like, hey, talk to me. So what does that mean as a company? And what does that mean from a marketing side? We need to make sure that we are putting information out there at the right part of their journey, so that if they're in the initial investigative stages, your information is hooking them, it's intriguing them, it's making them want to investigate or learn more about you. When they're ready and they say, you know what, this company is great, they check off all the check boxes, now I want to get my hands in on this product and I want to test it out, but I don't want them to know about me yet. We need to provide the tools so someone can do that on their own. They can evaluate easily, quickly, do a proof point, go and check out a pricing page, see if they are a fit for where you're offering. Then they raise their hand and say, talk to me. I want more information. More is being done behind the scenes than just the one person who's on your website raising their hand, because there's a team of individuals who are doing that same amount of research for organizations. And here's another stat from that. This was actually a report, I want to say it was done by McKinsey, and this was shocking to me. COVID again, changing right online, but now the dollar value of what companies are willing to spend with a self-serve journey without ever interacting with the salesperson is actually pretty astonishing. I mean, I think it was upwards of, almost 30%, it was in the 20s, were willing to spend up to $500,000. And I think 70% was a little bit around 50,000. That's an astonishing dollar value for not having a rep involved in your process, right? And it really changes the way you have to think about that buyer to customer journey.
That is a very important impacting point, because one of the observations the last 2 years were that not only the buying behavior has changed, but also the role of the buying center. We have people where you said, which was my initial, let's say, train I wanted to take, that it is so important to have marketing at these buying center meetings as well, to understand how the potential customer and the existing customer are reacting. And on the other end, it is not, if you are kept out, how you get the informations. That's one. And the other is that the buying center has changed, as we have now not the face-to-face meeting, we have virtual meetings, and some people are simply no longer invited because there is not such space like for 30 people in the large meeting room, which you get together with a nice meal and all that. Video is a bit more boring, and I would be very grateful if you have the link for the research you were mentioning, at your hands and share it with us, the
Oh,
one
I can get that for you.
that
There's
would
a
be
blog
fabulous,
post. Yeah.
because I believe that sharing that information is it's a bit of a game changer. Not all in the audience are really aware of.
Yeah, I mean you're correct in the amount of people who are involved now in a process for buying, and the way that they're consuming information, and the way they are looking at things. Here's a simple example, right? Back in the day, as a marketer, you would spend a lot of time trying to make sure that you were on the analyst radars, because companies were buying analyst reports, and you were making sure that the press releases were getting out there. Now, a lot of companies are actually using peer review sites as a go-to for a decision point in their process. Yes, they're still pulling the analyst report. Yes, they're still looking at your press releases, but peer-to-peer review sites have a much higher value. Well, as a marketer, important for us to understand, right? But then it's also important for us to engage in a process to make sure that our happy customers are getting those reviews out there on the sites where your buyers are going to be going and looking. And again, depending on the segment that you're involved with, there's a number of different sites out there. B2C, there's Yelp. B2B, you have Trust Radius and G2 and Capterra. I mean, the list goes on. So there's a lot of different sites that you have to focus on.
And one thing, as a personal observation, in the old days, 2 years ago, one person which get very important and is still a silent observer is the CFO, or the man who has an influence on the money. He is probably not directly involved, but indirect. And if you don't please him in his triggers and emotions and motivations, then you have lost before you have started to talk.
Having a seat at the budgeting table and having those conversations does bring up a number of challenges as well, especially given how marketing KPIs are changing. When you think about a net new customer versus a renewal of an ongoing customer. Your efforts around an ongoing customer are a little bit more long tail. So that report is not going to be seen for another year or however many years that contract is up for renewal. And the net news, gone are the days, I think, of being able to measure, well, how many forms have come in, how many inquiries have come in, what is the lead count? I think we're at a point now where the concept of quality versus quantity is truly at the height. I mean, it is the height of what's important, because you could throw a lot of money to get inquiries, but if those inquiries do not generate a converted opportunity for you, you've just thrown away a ton of money. I would rather spend more of an effort and dollars on something that might generate only 10, 25 qualified leads or qualified opportunities versus something that gave me 150 leads, and out of that, only one opportunity.
Yeah. You spend the money where the money is and not where the crap comes.
Correct.
I love that one. My words. Yeah. Sorry.
I actually might take those words and use those in my next meeting.
This raises the topic again, where you have taken a friendly detour, or, as you mentioned, a step back. I wanted to have your own opinion about where you love to be a loyal customer and where you have good experiences. Is there a program where you have fun and a lot of positive motions and emotions, where you love to engage? Honest answer.
And no is a perfectly acceptable one.
Absolutely, because you are thinking so long.
I know. I'm trying. It's something that's not jumping out of my mind, and I guess I must not have had a
which makes it a
tremendous experience somewhere, right?
It is a statement already, Jody. as other marketeers goof to create something which makes you as a pro willing to give away a lot of secret stuff or personal stuff, or where you feel very comfortable. Yeah. And this comes to the point, an existing customer, from your perspective, isn't it the harder challenge to keep him happy, to keep him as a subscriber, if it is a SaaS solution, and create ongoing benefits to him, that he is kept to do like a fisherman on the hook and keep him?
I think when you talk about customer loyalty, or you raise the question of customer loyalty in the B2C world and B2B world, are very different, right? Because the tactics that you would take on the B2C side, and when we think about customer loyalty, the points and the dollars off, that's important to me as an individual buyer. But when I'm in the B2B world, those type of loyalty programs really don't matter, because number one, it's not in it for me, right? If I'm getting dollars off, those dollars off are going to the company, not to me personally. And I, as someone within the organization, might be prohibited from being able to even take certain bonus programs because of corporate regulations. So
flyer miles, something like this.
When you talk about the loyalty programs, I think what we need to look at from both sides and separate them out. B2C, that works great because, again, I'm the benefactor. On a B2B side, I think it is more around how is my, again, experience with that company. Do I have access to people that I can call up and speak to? Do I have open communication with them? Are they listening? Are they helping to solve my problem? Are they being an advocate for me? Because remember, right, if they're coming to you, if there is an intent where, all right, I'm no longer happy in your service, I'm potentially going to walk away from you as a customer. Clearly, they're getting pressures internally from their organization because something's not working, right? So you're now on the radar within an organization. But if I, as the company, work with you and try and help you solve your issue, I now turn that around and make you look like the star within your organization, right? Because you've helped solve the problem. So personally, you are seen as someone who is the problem solver, as opposed to an area for concern. And you have elevated personally that individual on your customer side. But then the customer sees, okay, this company was willing to work with us. So it goes back to that loyalty. Okay, let's re-sign that contract. So I think we have to think about those programs differently because it's not an individual loyalty.
How to achieve loyalty at all? In terms of loyalty, I'm not talking B2C because my opinion there is these are ring fencing programs, not loyalty programs. But how to achieve loyalty in a B2B environment?
I think how you achieve loyalty in a B2B is to listen to them, to address any concerns, to make them a champion within their organization, right? Because oftentimes when you're dealing with customers, you're solving a particular need, but there might be other areas where you're a fit as well. And as you get to better understand that customer, you might be able to say, hey, Thomas, okay, you're using us here, but talk to me about the other challenges. What else is going on? You know what? We can help you out there. Let's talk. Let's bring that team to the table and figure out if we can also help there. And by the way, because you have this contract, maybe we can wrap it in and you can take advantage of some a higher tier pricing or some type of discounting. So at that point, again, you're creating loyalty because you're getting into other divisions within an organization. you're helping them to solve a problem that they may have been challenged with, that they're not even thinking you might be a fit for. So it comes down to, creating that relationship with a customer so that you understand what's going on outside of the scope that you're working with specifically. Step outside and really form that relationship.
Isn't that now marketing or sales?
It's both.
Mm-hmm.
Explain.
So that
Let
silo
that
is
was a bit short.
It's both. It does not reside in just one group, right? Because sales and marketing need to work together. And I would say this, it's not even just those two, it's also your support group, because chances are support is involved somewhere along the way because they're handling or mitigating issues that may have come up.
How to enable that then?
A lot of internal discussions.
No. Not a yes/no question.
It is not a yes/no question.
Got it.
That one's a really big layered cake, Thomas. You got to peel apart.
Well, we got 3 more shows.
And trust me, there is like a Sachertorte, a multi-layer construction. Yeah.
And who owns it? This process.
Oh,
Just giving her all the hard questions.
This is the challenge, right?
Oh, wow. Ralph is for the fluff guy, for the fluff stuff.
Personally, and this is something that we're as a discipline talking about right now, right? There's a lot of marketing conversations going on as to who owns this, and more importantly, how do you come to an agreement on what it is that's owned? And then how do you get that to get distributed throughout an organization? I think marketing needs a seat at that table. I think until the internal silos and the reputation management of what marketing is no longer an issue. I think marketing should own that a large percentage of the way, but with support from other group heads. I don't think it's something that can be done alone, but I think marketing could definitely help drive that.
Are companies set up wrongly? Sorry, Marshall, you are breathing.
I don't think companies are set up wrong. I think it's time to start thinking more horizontally within an organization, right? If you think about the group meetings that often happen within companies, it's, you have your support meeting, you have your marketing meeting, you have your sales meeting, and how about we have a joint meeting? It's not an all company meeting, but it is a meeting that happens on a frequent cadence with the department heads that are hearing the input from their groups and then coming to the table and saying, all right, let's talk about how does this impact all of these other areas? How can we all come together? Here's a problem. Let's figure out who's involved in the solution. So I don't think companies are set up wrong. I think that there needs to be better communication and collaboration throughout an organization. And some organizations have figured it out, right? Some, I think, do a great job or are making some great strides internally, but I don't think we're there yet as an industry.
You can have multiple separate towers, but you need bridges between them.
Yes. Yep.
Which organizations, from your perspective, do a proper job here?
Well, a lot of the companies that I deal with are more on the marketing side, so I get to see the back end of how I get a lot of my ideas from how they may be addressing challenges internally.
Yeah,
I think from the global perspective, I don't know. I don't know of an organization that stands out at me that's like, man, they have it all together, right? Because there's not, if that were the case, then I think we wouldn't have as many side conversations going on about how to make this better or how to solve this issue.
I'm not surprised. I mean, we haven't mastered human communication yet, one-to-one. And trying to do it in a great big corporate setting just multiplies the problems.
It
I mean,
does.
it's a work in progress. I
And-
hope we're moving in the right direction. But
I take it. Sorry, Marshall.
No, that's okay. But I am not at all surprised that
Yeah.
there isn't a company we can point to and say they've got it right. There might be
And-
one that's got it a little more right, but we've all got a long way to go.
As business to consumer, we look very often into, in the old days when there were the frequent traveler programs, we had there some exotic airlines which have done it in a proper way, and some Arabian ones. But these days,
Exotic Arabian
don't-
ones, that's good.
sorry?
Exotic ones and the Arabian ones, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, I was worried
Yeah,
about
well,
other
when I
ones,
was
Arabian.
reading about Thai and Korean is the exotic department, and Etihad Emirates is the Arabian side. And now I mention Lufthansa Miles and More, and I'm happy again. Now, that
You mean
was-
you as an example for a particularly crappy one or what?
Yeah, well, it is depending. This is why I was so much into the digging of something which creates benefit to a certain degree and is not a cashback. From my observation, the Prime program, even that it costs me money, does deliver me a benefit all in all if I'm doing it as a business organization and if I do it as a private person. So I was honestly looking into some loyalty programs in depth and found that a lot of these loyalty programs, as we all would agree on, are gathering and collecting data and not giving back, as much as we give away. This is step one. Step two, instead of taking my data and getting a little thing back, those cashback programs seems to be quite attractive. And I just spoke recently to a business chap who said that he has changed to a dedicated business credit card from that supplier, and that he earns, because he has always enough money on that account, 3% of cash back. And this is a lot more. And all these funny points with payback or God knows what, which are only a limited amount in percentage of what you have bought. And what you mentioned is proper listening, giving some extra service. I have a nice example, which I found compelling. It's ages old, but it is still in the professional tools area. There are companies, Swiss dominated Hilti or Festool as a German one. And they offer to their customers a loyalty program. If you register for that loyalty program, you get an enhancement in the guarantee for the machine you bought. And it is not only that you get, as normally a business customer doesn't get the same amount of a guarantee like a B2C customer, but with a professional tool, they give you the same warranty time, and you are eligible. You can take advantage of a program which gives you for free a machine if you once has to go to the service, or if it's broken and you are on a construction site and you need immediately a spare machine. This is something which I found really compelling in a way of, okay, they are problem-solving thinkers in my journey, which think in a worst-case scenario for me to my advantage. And I'm honestly collecting some of these examples as I see that would be the smart approach for me for a loyalty program.
That's interesting from a B2B perspective when you're talking about the extended warranties or the at the moment where everything is going wrong.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to solve it. Because I think, in the B2B world, I would wrap that in my mind as part of different support programs, right? That a company is going to
see that.
their application. But that's interesting. And
they combine it with a plastic card, which encounters you also to some other privileges. But it is, yes, you get their newsletter, but you don't get it daily. You get it monthly. And you get it very focused, such as you have a certain type of machinery, and they inform you where these getting better, how you can do a trade-in program to get the newest and get a fair price for the old one. You are in the word again, Thomas.
Eligible.
Thank
you. Wrong pronunciation, probably, Marshall, right?
I actually had trouble hearing you.
Eligible.
You're close.
Eligible was close, yeah. So a bit more emphasis on the second one.
You can take the benefit of that extra program. Yeah.
It's, something jumped to mind when you were talking about that in the tech world, right? We've all heard the saying, no one ever got fired for buying IBM. And you think about that's back from the 70s, right? And we think about how long that's been around. And I would say, I would challenge and say, is that truly the case today, right? Because while people still buy on brand and they buy, while they buy on brand and they buy on experience, think about all of the companies that are exploding around us today, coming up with innovative ideas to solve specific challenges at a more palatable entry point, right? Gone are the days of people spending tons of money on a very large, heavy set solution when there's so many smaller pieces out there that they
also with 3 letters
put together, right? So, when we talk about loyalty, I think that's where you want to focus to make sure that your customers are happy with you and are going to stay with you and are not going to end their subscription after their initial contracted period. Because let's face it, right? There's other options out there. Everyone has more competitors these days because of the innovative solutions cropping up all over the place. And you got to make sure you stand out, you listen to your customers, and you deliver, right? And form that relationship. Relationship is key.
I'm grateful for that statement. Yeah.
How about the difference between product selling, solution selling, and subscription selling, or marketing of it?
Oh, what question do you want to dive into there? There's so much to talk about.
Well, you got 1.5 minutes.
Oh, great! You throw this one at me at the end,
or as much time as you choose to take.
Yeah, the recording doesn't automatically stop in now 1 minute, but
we could do an entire segment on just this. But go ahead. How do you want me to take over at this question?
So, what's the main differences?
So as you said, product,
solution, and subscription, which is somewhat a hybrid, but in my eyes, and in B2B, of course.
The difference is, again, communicating the value, how you communicate that value, the cadence of communicating that value, and making sure that you are mitigating any issues that are coming up far enough in advance from a subscription standpoint. For a solution versus a tech set, solution, you need to be proving there's additional value for that solution, right? For those, or if you're talking consultative services or something more in depth or an add-on to a technology, you better be communicating the why and making sure people understand the value behind it. And on the technology side, right? Why your technology? Why are you better than what is out there? And here's the thing, right? cheaper is not always best. If you are the more expensive product in your space, that's okay. Own that, but then stand behind that and deliver what's expected on that.
And to the inside, especially if you're considering the product marketing as opposed to solution marketing. I know some organizations where these two sub-organizations are at odds.
Again, probably you have to communicate internally and make sure the right hand and left hand are working together on that one. Because again, you got to break down those silos. Products and solutions work together.
Nice word. Got to break down the silos. Full of emphasis.
I'm going to hashtag that one on my post.
Yep. Yeah. Which also probably, depending on your time, which is probably quite stretched, makes for a good famous last word, right? This hashtag. Got to break down the silos. Hashtag.
I love it.
Yeah,
Well, thank you guys for this opportunity. This was great to talk with you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Big fun
It's
to be
always
with
good to talk to you. I'm glad we've been able to do it in public.
And on quite short notice.
Yeah.
That's there we are honestly grateful, because having such a fantastic experience, such a passionate guest, and such a vivid talk up front and live, it's a little piece of going directly to my heart. Yeah, it makes my day perfect.
Anytime I can hear the word vivid, I love it. So, like I said, I'm calling you on Monday, Ralph. We're going to talk. We're going to set my week.
Okay, thanks to you. So we are going backstage now. Thanks to the audience. And by the way, we didn't manage to scare them off, which is good. See you backstage in a second, and the rest, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.